Hello. My name's Madeline, or Maddie. Either works. And if you're listening to this, congrats because you are listening to the first ever recording for Attention White People. And quick backstory if you are new to the page. Attention White People is an Instagram account that I started in 2020. And it started out as me creating graphics that were sharing resources around racism, white privilege, police brutality, really anything that had to do with the journey to allyship. And then a couple years ago, that Instagram account shifted to a website because it just made a lot more sense to function as a resource library. It was easier to be able to navigate through a website versus an Instagram account. So that's what attentionwhitepeople.com is. And now we are shifting back to Instagram. We are debuting on TikTok right in time for the ban. Going to be anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Before we talk about what we're wanting to accomplish and our thoughts and feelings around being here, we can all introduce ourselves. And I'm going to put Steven on the spot to go first.
Well, thanks, Maddie, for putting me on the spot first. Longtime listener. I actually followed the account without knowing Maddie. I actually moved to LA in 2021. And so actually found the account during that time and had no idea who it was. And it was kind of eye-opening to actually figure out and find the person behind it, which was kind of crazy. But Steven Springer, it's interesting to be part of this group, and I'm excited for it because during that time, I was actually a leader of a Black employee network at my employer at the time. And, those conversations were hard to have as you think about not only just, being a Black person and having those conversations of, everybody actually finally having an opinion or a point of view and having that experience for what I was living every day. But the conversations are so much broader as well. And that's something that I'm looking forward to, of one, not having to carry that burden of having the conversation and being the kind of only voice, because I don't represent everybody that maybe looks similar to me. But then, there's so much more going on in the world as well. So to be able to have people that are willing to be uncomfortable and have the breadth of conversations and have that vulnerability, I'm excited to share that on a bigger scale and excited to share that with our potential audience as well. So I'll pass it over to Jenny to introduce herself.
Oh. Popcorn Jenny.
Popcorn it over to me, sure. That's hard to follow. That was very thorough, Steven.
That's why I got the laptop out.
He's prepared.
You wrote, oh my God.
No, I didn't. I did not write that down.
I would be so upset. So my name is Jenny. Oh my God. My name is Jenny. Yeah, I've known Maddie longer than anyone here, since 2020. We worked together and then became friends very quickly. I actually didn't know about Attention White People for a long time, until maybe like a year or so at least into knowing you. But yeah, I followed immediately. I really was impressed by how much you were doing on Instagram, and I love that you're doing this now. I don't know. Background about me, I work in the advertising world, and I think in my 8 or so years in this industry, I've run into a lot of really interesting situations regarding race and racial politics in the advertising world, in the corporate world, etc. So as an Asian American, I have had to kind of navigate my way through a lot of uncomfortable situations and a lot of difficult situations. So yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this whole podcast situation. And I'm going to stop talking now and I will popcorn it over to Tim.
My name's Tim Gomez. I'm an educator from Long Beach. I've been a teacher for 12 years now. And I think what's interesting about the work that I've done is I've worked predominantly with like marginalized communities. And I think in talking about issues like that, I imagine that we're going to talk about over the, coming weeks, coming months. I think that the last 12 years have been spent not only kind of unpacking a lot of like my internalized both racism and like a lot of stuff with like class and positionality, but also understanding that there are a lot of layers to approaching these issues. Like working with marginalized communities, it makes me realize that like as a person of color, there are definitely things that come with that, but there's also things that I haven't gone through because I do still have a lot of privilege even as a person of color, and trying to figure out how to navigate that in spaces where I had positions of power. And even now working in a community that's a lot more privileged, it forces me to look back on some of the decisions I made as a teacher working in a marginalized community that like felt like good decisions at the time, but like I realize now were like decisions that maybe were in some ways like not taking advantage of, but like but were decisions that I made because I was in a marginalized community. And so to think about the back and forth between that is really interesting to me. And I think getting a chance to have like really tough conversations with you guys where we, a lot of times we might agree and a lot of times we won't, is really interesting to me because I think that's how you grow as people. And I think modeling that is really important. Yeah.
I will say personally, my hope with just capturing these conversations is to create a safe space, not only for us, obviously, but also for anyone listening to have these types of important conversations, because I know not everyone is having conversations about these things in their real life for whatever reason it may be. And even people who are like maybe want to hear more like different points of view from their own or from what they're hearing in their everyday life. And I think that we'll obviously be talking about things that are very serious and important, but it'll be a spectrum. We'll also be talking about things that are fun. And I want to make it clear it's not like a educational podcast in the sense that that's not like the structure we're taking. It's not a lecture. We're not teaching, but we are talking about important things. And I'm sure whether it be us or people listening will learn things along the way, but that's not the intention. It's just to create a safe space to have these types of conversations. And I think that that's what I'm most excited about. And I think the last thing I want to say is that I want to thank all of you for, one, having these conversations with me like privately. Like that's a huge thing already. I feel like to have these important conversations, you have to be having them with people that you trust. And I know that inviting a white person into those conversations isn't the most safe situation. So one, I'm just thankful that you have them with me like personally. And then two, the fact that you're open to having them with people that on the other side of the screen to let strangers hear them. That's a huge thing. And I just can't thank you guys enough. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they want to say about it in general, but
No, I'll piggyback and say a little bit. I kind of laugh where, growing up in Ohio, it's one of those of, while there's areas of a lot of diversity, it's still, it's Ohio, so you take it with a grain of salt. But for me, I've always had friends and people in very different places and communities, so I've been exposed to that. And so one of the catalysts of me moving out to a different city and moving to LA was kind of the diversity of people, diversity of thought. And while we kind of led off with something very serious of, why we're here in the maybe more the meat and potatoes of what we're going to talk about. Midwest pun. But, you know, I think some of the things of why this group has been fun to get to know and actually be able to sit down and do the cliche thing of starting a podcast is, you know, we talk so much more, and I'm sure that'll come to light as we have a conversation. I mean, just earlier today, we were literally recapping Love is Blind and just, you know, getting real passionate about that. So I think as an audience, you know, yes, it's not going to be something that's so preachy. We are certainly not experts in our field or trying to represent like the opinion on a topic or being right. It is, but it's been fun to get to know this group beyond just, you know, as people, and to be able to have that trust to, you know, maybe be vulnerable or have an opinion swayed or be, you know, share a new perspective like that. That's exciting. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that point that you were kind of making of it. It definitely is a full spectrum, and you know, that's why this group has been fun to get to know over the past year, just of us just kind of having conversations. So excited to dive in.